So here we go. You can use any kind of substrate like canvas, wood, cradle board, whatever you want. What I like to do, this is an 11 by 14 panel board. Now lots of times, depending on how much paint you put on these, they can warp a little bit. So what I like to do is I like to take two of them and then glue them back to back, okay? It not only and then once it's glued, then I tape all the way around just to make sure that they're held together. And also, I want to have a little border on here. I want a little white border. So I have taped it 1 inch all the way around, so that when the base coat goes on and then the paints, it will actually leave a white border when I'm finished. But this is nice and sturdy, and for me, sometimes with my tremors, I have trouble wielding a canvas because I will be moving this around with the marble. And I don't want it too high because it bothers my shoulders, because I do this while I'm sitting. So what I do is I just put some of these lids. This happens to be a lid to a heart-shaped divided cup. And they're only, they're not that thick or deep. So I just put those on there, and it still gives me a grip. It still gives me something to get under and lift it. Okay, so let me see. The other thing I like about doing it this way, if I want to do some experimenting, and I'm just not real sure if it's going to come out, once this is dry, I can turn it over and use the other side. And these will fit into a frame really well. Unlike a canvas that's, got the board around it, unless you want one of those frames, those shadow frames. So for a number of reasons, I really like this. And you can do it with the other sizes as well. So what we're going to do, there are many ways you can do the marble roll. First, you put a base down. Now, you don't want the base real thick, okay? Because you want the marble to go through the paint that's on top of the base, but you don't want the marble to go down to the substrate. So size matters on your marble. This is a great marble if you've got a lot of thick paint, okay? This is a really, pretty large size marble. For this one, because these paints are fairly thin, I'm using this size marble, okay? They're about half the size, because you want to be able to have it roll nicely throughout your paints. And speaking of paints, I love using ready pour paints. Sometimes I just, my hands just don't let me mix paints and do it without a mess everywhere. So I do like the ready pour. Today we're going to use the DecoArt Fluid Ready to Pour paints. And I'm going to tell you which ones I'm going to use. I'm going to use the Blue Violet. Now, I wanted sort of a magenta, but I wanted it like a deep color. And this magenta is great, but it just wasn't as deep as what I wanted. So I did about half and half magenta and fuchsia. And then I added about 4 drops or so of the blue neon until I got the shade that I really liked. And you'll see that in a minute. I'm using Orchid, which is a really pretty color. Coral. Aquamarine. Pearl Metallic. And that does it for what I'm going to use to pour on the canvas. Now, my base coat is the pearl metallic, and I added a little bit of the orchid because I wanted to have sort of a pale lilac or lavender or orchid, however whatever you want to call it. Now, my base coat is slightly thicker than the paints I'm going to use to pour over it, but not by a lot. I don't know if you can see that. It does flow off the stick really nicely, and it leaves a slight mound. I mean, very briefly. It makes a slight mound and disappears, okay? And it's nice and creamy. Now my paints, I mixed up the base coat and I let that sit overnight with some press and seal over it. The paints, however, they drop, okay, but they disappear immediately, pretty much immediately. I don't know if you can see it on this one. Let me take one of the other colors. That blue violet is slightly heavier, okay? You can see it dripping. It wants to flow off the stick, but it's just barely thick enough that it drips, okay? Now, I did pour these right from the container into the cups, and I've let them sit for about, probably a good 4 hours, because I really wanted them to thicken up a little because they are pretty watery. Now, excuse me, this Pro Metallic is also a little bit thicker, so it's coming down off the stick better. I shouldn't say better. It's coming off the stick more in a stream, a longer drip. Hope you can see that. A longer drip. So it's slightly thicker, and gravity is pulling that down in more of a stream. I love this coral. See, we got drips. Now it wants to, it's just minuscule thicker. So it's, kind of long drips, but not as much as the white. Try to stay in camera line. Excuse me. Okay, this is the Aquamarine. Oops. All right. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to put some gloves on, and then we'll get our base coat down. What I'm going to do, okay, that's the other thing I wanted to tell you. And I'll also explain while I'm putting the paint down. You can do any number of things with this marble whorl. Usually what I do is I make puddles. I make puddles on different parts of the substrate. And I put maybe anywhere from 3 to maybe sometimes 5 or 6 colors building up those puddles, and then do my marble. Well, today I thought I would try something different since I was dreaming about it last night. And I'm going to take each color separately, and I'm going to make rings, interlocking rings with the colors. I think what will happen, if the rings aren't too big, you'll see a lot of negative space, and the light orchid will play in part of this. I just have to be careful not to put too much paint on here, because then you end up pouring off a lot more. When you do your stacks of color, you have a little bit more flexibility as to how much will stay on, how much you've got to pour off. You have more to work with when you're pouring stuff off, when you're layering your colors. In fact, I think in the middle, I will layer colors, and then the other ones I'll interlock. The fun thing about the marble is it breaks those lines into interesting designs, and that's what I want to do today. Okay, so I'm going to put on some music, and I'm going to let you watch what I'm doing. I think I'm in love with this piece. Oh my goodness. You know, it does look like a flower here. And the purple, the dark didn't take over. I like these that look kind of like leaves. It'll be interesting. I almost wish I hadn't put, taped it for a white border. And they're just some little specks of cells that wanted to start, like right there, but not too many, you know. I really like it. I like the combination of the colors. Yeah. Just the movement of it, the softness of it. I don't think it's just like a glare in your face. I am really, really happy about it.